Hey, we're live. Let's celebrate confetti cannon. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I've got Justin Marks here, and we're going to be talking about Rebuild the World Alaska today. So welcome. We've already got a bunch of people in the chat. So thanks for joining us, everybody. And welcome to the show, Justin.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad it's working this time.
Yeah.
I looked over to see all the people in chat. I didn't realize I had to switch to that other tab. So that's awesome.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of people hanging out. So welcome, everybody. Yeah, we just needed a weekend. We knew that, I don't know, StreamYard knew we needed some extra time or something. So yeah. Well, we're going to talk about Rebuild the World Alaska. And I've got a lit RPG confession that I need to make after all of those pre-convention videos. I know I talked up karaoke a lot in the months leading up to Lit RPG Con. But Jen and I ended up spending most of the karaoke time hanging outside of the karaoke room with Justin, Misty, Gary, Adam, and James, just talking about books and stuff. And maybe did not go into the karaoke hall hardly at all.
So I am not a karaoke person at all, so I was not going to go in from the beginning. There's some things I don't do, and that's one of them.
And karaoke is one of them. Yeah. It was, so Doug says it was just too loud in the room, and I mean I think this puts us all in like the old man's club. Like, I agree that was 100%. It was really loud. There was a lot of energy, and at that point the little like introverted me was like, nope. Which, I mean, I could hear the karaoke. Everybody that did karaoke sounded amazing, but I did not go in there. But I had like, on the plus side of this, Justin, you and I got to meet and talk.
Yeah.
And hang out.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. Yeah. So this is a first for Beyond Quest, this book. This is the first base builder book that I've read for the podcast itself. And I like base builders. There's a lot of books that have base building elements in them that I really appreciate. But I'm starting to think that the subgenre is a bit of a unicorn, because this is really, after reading this one, I'm like, okay, this is a book that is actually a base builder book, and that's the purpose of it. And it's like in theory, I really like the subgenre, but it's like a myth that it exists. So thank you for providing a base builder that exists and is good. So
I love base building too, which is why I wrote it.
That is the thing. When you talk to a lot of authors, they're like, well, I really wanted to read this book and it didn't exist, so I wrote it. And so thank you for that, because now I don't have to write it. So let's talk about the book a little bit. Rebuild the World starts in a true apocalypse fashion, just as the world is ending. Our main character, Devin, lives in what does the city starts out living in?
He starts in Clawwalk, Alaska.
Yeah. In my notes, I still have him in Ketchikan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ketchikan is where I live, and he visits Ketchikan. But
yeah.
And I have been over on Prince of Wales Island. I think I mentioned I really like having physically been in most of the places I write about. Obviously, the off-world places in some of the books I haven't been to. But
yeah. We're going to talk about like the next books in the series, because there's a theme about all the places that you've been and where these books are located. But yeah, so he lives in Alaska and is deemed compatible with this like nanotechnology that these aliens have kind of dropped off to help Earth with their climate crisis that they have caused. And
yeah, that kind of caused. They totally caused.
Yeah, they totally caused it. Yeah. So these aliens like swoop in, destroy our environment, swoop out, and they're like, "Here, we're gonna give you this AI technology to help.
We've damaged your sun. We're sending you into an ice age. See if you can survive for the next couple hundred years."
Yeah. We'll see you when we swing back around. And
oh, by the way, some of the criminals we were chasing may have landed on your planet and be trying to kill you. Good luck. Bye.
Yeah. In true alien fashion, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Devin ends up with Vlad as his assigned AI, and Vlad makes him an architect and gives him this ability to have kind of this base building ability so that he can help the community survive the oncoming Ice Age, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's just, it's just another Tuesday in the post-apocalyptic world. The narrator is Brad Derry, who does a great job portraying Devon and the apocalypse. It's really well done from a narration perspective. So yeah. If you're in the chat, I want to know if you have read a base builder. What is the base builder you've read? Because I do think that this subgenre, we talk about it. Everybody likes a good base builder, but I like, what are they? Right? I'm telling you, Rebuild Alaska is one of them. Right? Justin, should we address you as Justin, Iceman, Mr. Marks? What would you prefer when people come up to you at cons?
I mean, Iceman would be flattering, but no, I think Justin's fine.
Okay.
You made me think Top Gun there.
Mm-hmm. We could go with the architect.
The architect.
Yeah. So we've had a few conversations since Lit RPG Con, and one of the things that has stuck out in my mind is, as we were talking about your book, and it being a base builder and all the rest of it. And I mentioned that for the most part, I don't like post-apocalyptic tales because, and I said this in a panel at RPG Con, I don't like to imagine having to shoot my neighbor who's become a zombie or whatever, right? And you said that, like, yeah, the reason I liked yours is because you have this like optimistic view of the apocalypse. Can you explain what that means and how that influences your writing?
Yeah, and I think we've talked about, I do book signings here in Ketchikan multiple times a week, so I've talked about my books with a lot of people. But I usually tell them it's the friendly apocalypse, in that the 90% of the world's population that should die did, and the 10% that are left actually work together. I like the people who survived work together, build together, and for the most part are good people. I like to think that maybe we would actually be good people in a emergency situation like that. I like the conflict to be either with the outside forces or with the environment, the cold, the lack of food, but really trying to work together.
Yeah.
A lot of times I say, I love The Walking Dead, but it frustrates me how many people die because humans are selfish idiots.
Right. Yeah. And it's a theme in the post-apocalypse, right? Of like the selfish idiots that sabotages the humanity's best hope, right? Like that's a trope that's done quite a bit. It was very refreshing to have a novel in which there's some inner conflict within the group, but for the most part, everybody's like, yeah, we're gonna die.
And as it goes on, there are occasionally humans that are not acting the way
we've all done group projects.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We've all done group projects, but for the most part, you end up turning in something, right?
And there is, I try to keep it somewhat grounded. I do feel like starting it over on Prince of Wales Island here in Alaska, that is a very small, very close-knit community. I think starting a post-apocalyptic novel in some big major metropolitan area, it would be a lot more unrealistic to have people just pulling together. But when you start on an island where everyone already knows each other, I think it's a little more realistic to have that sort of outcome. Yeah. And in my first series, I did aggressors in human-on-human combat could gain no experience or levels from it, but the defenders could level up as a way to make it more realistic that the jerks ended up dying because they weren't leveling up.
Like, we can make this system, so might as well stack the deck for the good guys. Right. Yeah. I recently saw, and Jen, maybe you can help me out. I think it was like Fly. It was a musical based on the planes, the post 9/11 planes landing in like
up in Canada.
Up in Canada, yeah. And the play was really well done, and it really had like the small remote island community like banding together, come from away. Yeah, thanks, Jen. I need to know the name of it. Yeah,
that's a really good movie and just a good story in general. What actually happened with the way that town pulled together to like welcome all those planes that they did not have the resources for was awesome.
Yeah, it was like a community of like 3,000 and like 6,000 people's worth of planes were stranded there or something like that. It was kind of crazy. But if you haven't seen it, I think it's on Prime now, right? Or something like that. But our local community theater put it on and they did an amazing job. So yeah. Yeah, to be fair, Jen went to the play with me, so but they're a lot better at locking in that stuff. All right, well, let's talk about your main character and his best friend Alex. They are just regular guys. And why the two of them? And can you give everyone a base idea of the kind of powers that they end up having in your novel?
Yeah, so with all my books so far, I really want main characters who survive and do well because of some basic competence and hard work. Um, I enjoy reading the OPMC from the start, and I may be writing one of those as a future series. But for these guys, I really wanted all of us to be able to see ourselves in them. Like, this is realistically what I would be able to do in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Devin
He's like
is
in a call center, right? Like he's just
a tech support job working from home. Yeah, nothing.
Yeah. None of us
fancy.
can relate to that.
Yeah, so he basically gets these powers to direct how the city is going to be built. So there's this processing portal. And for anyone who's played a base builder, he's got to collect work units and material units and settlement tokens in order to build things. And he can also, there's research tracks, so you can research. So he's working in conjunction with the leadership of the town and the people living there, but it's really his decision. He's the one who decides what gets built. So, and he has to like figure out, hey, we allocate the pods to make more work units or settlement units or focus on research, while still worrying about how quick the cold is coming, when they're going to run out of food, and the hostile aliens that may be trying to kill him, which kind of rolls into his best friend Alex, who gets the enforcer class, and is more focused on defense, both defending the town from the aliens, and then longer term thinking about defense from if there are humans with less than honorable intentions, or just you always end up with some idiots who do things they're not supposed to. So the class part is really limited. There's not really leveling up. They get tokens that allow them to potentially get new perks or level up their perks, which can affect the stats a little bit. But from and you'll have your opinion because you've read it, but the personal leveling up and stuff, I would say, is very light, where it's the city itself that's the crunchy part of the book.
and this kind of comes back to, it's a base builder. It's not like a personal level. I mean, I think Devin gets some, because Devin's unlocking different capabilities with the city, right? But it does really stay more focused on the city building aspect as a whole.
Yeah.
So if you're like a crunchy, like level up person, you'll still like this because there is that aspect of it. It's just the city, not the people.
The city with the new buildings. And then I really wanted to do the research tree, which is something I hadn't seen implemented quite the same way. But there's a lot of like, what do you research? What buildings do you level up? How do you level them up? Do you improve the insulation so that they stay warm longer? Do you get more food production? Stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of crunchy. I like crunchy, but I just shifted it to the city building part.
Yeah. No, let's talk about the research and about like how you think about a base builder differently than like just an individual hero's journey. You still have leveling up of like the city itself and the technology, but how do you approach like a research tree from like a personal magic tree? How do you approach that differently?
In some ways are the same. I planned it ahead of time, and I had the different tracks that they could research and stuff. I do a combination of plotting and planning for my writing, so I knew the general area. But yeah, they researched different things that I expected. Sometimes I would be writing the story, I'm like, I planned them to focus here, but really with the way everything's going, it's going to research somewhere else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had the progression and what would open up pretty well defined ahead of time.
Did you have it outside of what they ended up researching? Like, do you have like the map for like any architect in this world, or did you just really map out?
It does go outside somewhat. Like, there's not the details in there. So things they didn't research, I don't have the exact details of how it would have applied and how it would have modified the buildings. But yeah, I do have more than what is shown in the books.
Yeah. We'll need that like level up poster someday of like, here's all the different, how would you have designed your Alaskan town?
And I'm open. Like, I love the game Frostpunk. And this is not based on Frostpunk, but I was going for some of the same vibe there. And there's some research things that are adjacent to what you might see in Frostpunk. I'm really curious, anyone in the chat, if anyone else has played Frostpunk. It is like one of the greatest city builders ever.
F-R-O-S-T, yeah.
It is part of the Humble bundle that just started. I think I'm getting another copy of it with some other city building games. That one is like 1800s Victorian England with an ice age and having to use steampunk technology to keep a city alive. And it's more depressing than what I write. There's this part in there like, hey, your whole city is going to freeze to death. You can fix your heater by sending the 12 orphans in to clear the chutes and die.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no orphan killing in Justin's book.
And it's also present day, not 1800s.
Would it be funny if it were like, I'm like, yeah, this is an optimistic apocalypse, and then we're like, well, in the research tree, you've got to send your orphans into the chute.
Yeah, no, none of that.
Yeah, it looks like Corey might have actually played it. Hey, Corey. Yeah, we might have to have like a sub chat going about Frostpunk. Yeah. We're gonna have to put it. We have to put it in my to be played. So okay. So from a base builder, it sounds like you really thought through the research track side of things. How did you like make a map of like, okay, these are where the buildings? Did you like SimCity like a map out of like how the city grows and like progresses, or how did that plan
yeah,
go?
I think through all 3 books you'll see a little bit of that. I didn't have like a detailed physical model or anything, but there was, particularly in the first book, there was, you know, references to, okay, in this direction down this road you're building these houses, and or this section we're doing the blocks of them. So I had like the sketch on a pad of paper general areas. Same way in my first series, in all the dungeons I did in that series, I had paper sketches of exactly the layout of all the rooms and where everything was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did have to write it down, so I didn't trust my mind to keep it all as I was writing.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Okay. Yeah. So one of the things, and one of the things that's fun about this book, and you got to kind of wrap your mind around, is that, you know, there's constraints like building materials, or like research points, or like energy to support the buildings and stuff like that. And when we were talking about this before the podcast, you actually showed me some of your spreadsheets to keep track of like each day, like how much the community had or what their focus was. Or can you talk through us that process a little bit?
Yeah, I like to make sure it's really accurate, and if anyone is going to go in and check my numbers, that they will be correct. So yeah, there's pods that generate different resources in different proportions depending on how they're formatted each day. So like 8 o'clock in the morning, I would know it had been 24 hours since he collected resources. I would have a list of here's what's each pod is working on, how many pods, how much it would produce. And then it would go in there, and that would determine what could be built or what could be done. But it was the same way if there's sections in there where there's an emergency, he's got to build something quick. You know, if he had to pull resources and do an emergency build at 4 p.m., then I regenerated resources for the 2 4-hour cycles to 4 p.m. And the next day at 8 o'clock, it was 4 cycles instead of 6 cycles. So I'm sure if I put this as a challenge, someone will find where I messed up the math. But I had really detailed math there. And then each city itself had a spreadsheet that said like all the building types and how many there were. And then, you know, if there's 6 dorms, that houses 60 people and feeds 40 people, but uses this much power, but I have this many windmills. Like everything was a huge spreadsheet that was always being tracked. So every build, every cold snap, I would know exactly if like how many people were at risk of freezing, how many people could run out of food, and all that stuff.
So, you know, I mean, if you've played, you know, any sort of base building sort of game, you know, it's like food, like space for everybody to live, you know, energy to heat those places. And then there's things like, insulation, like the technology to insulate the buildings better, because we're talking about like getting down to like -70.
Well, he's got to be able to build it to go all the way to -200.
Right, while still having food produced and all the rest of it, right?
Which caused a little bit of research on my part, where I was trying to figure out when CO2 would desublimate into dry ice, because I knew it happened at a reasonable temperature to be able to make dry ice. But for anyone curious,
you gotta tell us, what is the temperature?
It would actually be below -300 in our atmosphere, because it's such a small percentage.
Okay.
Pure CO2 will desublimate into dry ice at like between -70 and -90. And I was really worried that I had written myself into a corner and there was going to be like dry ice snow coming down at the end of book 1. I'm like, oh my God. So then I had to do a whole bunch of research to make sure that I wasn't
just like totally
creating an untenable situation.
Yeah. So did you do any like Antarctic research on like how cold it gets in like the Antarctic stations and stuff, and compare that to where you're at? I mean, you're in Alaska, so you have to deal with cold temperatures there too.
Well, I'm in Southeast Alaska, so not really. Like the Midwest is colder than Ketchikan. I did some research. Also, there's Antarctica. The Antarctica station shows up in my first series, and there was a short story in the Royal Guard anthology that I did set in Antarctica. So I'd done some research ahead of time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I did a TikTok post that was like, what would be the worst place to be living in the next ice age? And Alaska probably takes it. Yeah, but you have more books coming. Your next book, Rebuild the World, is taking place in Maine, right? It seems like you've got a penchant for like northern climates here. So talk about that a little bit.
Yes. And the third and final book in the series is with my editor now, Rebuild the World, Michigan.
Which, as a Michigander, I'm looking super forward to. So yeah.
Hopefully I've like got back and forth on this. I actually had a really good reason for why these locations in world, and it doesn't show up till book 3, so I'm going to spoil it for all of you in here. But I'll do like a 1, 2, 3 count. It's not that exciting. You can look away if you don't want to know, because it comes up. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah. They were talking about it, and Vlad is like, "Oh yeah, didn't I ever tell you?" But it's basically the Earth's orientation and rotation as the aliens whipped by at a faster than speed of light. They are only here for a very short period of time, and that longitude and side of the Earth was what was facing them. So most of the criminals and the people who were fighting the criminals that the good aliens set up would have been along that same line of latitude. Okay. I mean, it really is because it's those places I know, and I wanted to do it in the colder climate, but I also thought through the like in-world reason. Yeah. A lot of people got invested in that though, and were kind of upset that I was waiting till book 3 to
reveal the why.
Yes. I'm like, it's been there the whole time. I think, as a writer, there's so many things that if you explained everything right up front, the book would be really boring. So sometimes trying to time out when to reveal things can be an art in and of itself.
Yeah, you've got to, I think, it's like mystery genre is a thing, but every book needs some mystery. Like every series needs some mystery to draw you on, right?
Yeah.
100%.
I do think, too, that for an ice age, some of the already colder climates would actually do way better than those that have places with no heating and no insulation and no idea how to deal with the cold.
Yeah, Texans in a snowstorm don't do.
I was going to say, when I was in the Air Force, I was in Texas, and like, San Antonio shuts down with 1/10 of an inch of snow.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's, I think, oddly, the most optimistic place maybe to be in an ice age would be Alaska, because at least you guys know what to do with snow. Yeah. Yeah. So this series, it's 3 books. What the series is going to be? Are you going? Yeah.
No, it was 3 books. I had plotted it out as potentially being more. And really, I don't want to give away too much here, but the way I organized, I worked really hard to try to make a series that could stay engaging and fun with growth while staying focused on city building. And there's been so many books that I love, and I love the series, but like the Shadow Sun series or the Houndsman series that start out really base building focus. And even my first series had a lot more base building in book 1. And I used to be, as a reader, like, this author did this great base building book. Why did it stay base building? And then I wrote my first series and I was like, oh, that's why. You've really got to plan how to keep a base building series interesting and base building focused. Yeah. That said, I felt toward the end of book 2, I'm like, I think I can only do one more book interesting in base building. If I wanted to go beyond 3 books, I would have veered too far away from the base building. And I really wanted to do a series that stayed base building focused, beginning to end.
So let's talk about that a little bit from like a writer, like a writer as architect kind of perspective, right? Like, what are some of the challenges of a base builder in keeping people's interest? I mean, you certainly don't want to be like, okay, here's a chapter on building the 50-second windmill, right? But is that really the issue, or?
I mean, I think it's the same thing you see anyone who does city builders or Civilization. Think about playing, if for those of you who've played Civilization, I don't know if you have, Reck, but it's really fun and exciting and moves fast for the first 200 years of the game. And then it's fun, but it's an entirely different game where each turn takes 3 hours because you've got 60 different cities and you're fighting a war on 2 fronts. And I think books, that same thing happens if you stick with it too long. Like, either it changes too much or it gets boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I really felt like that even with my extensive planning to try to make a base building focus series, that I would be doing a disservice to the readers to stretch it past 3.
Yeah. So and I haven't read book 2 yet. It is like coming out, it came out like while I was reading book 1. But for between books, you obviously have some location changes just based on the name, right?
Yeah.
But when you change locations, do you start over in the new location? Do you kind of continue where you left off from like an architecture perspective?
It depends on the location, exactly what is already in place and what has been going on. The thing I wanted to do to have things ramp up is there's like 3 things really. One, it's getting colder all the time. So like the tension there is more.
Yeah.
The research though has this thing, you see it in the first book, but all of Devon's, like his stream of cities and civilizations, because he sets up Ketchikan as well in the first book, they all share a unified research tree. So there is,
which I think is super clever, right? Because then you have, even as you're like networking across the world, like you have this like base of camaraderie that everybody's pulling from, right? Like this base of shared.
But also a little bit of every city has different needs. Like when they get to a point where they can devote research resources, like some place may need food, some place needs more housing, some place needs more power. So I delve into that, particularly in the latter books, a little bit more of like they have to think about not just what they need, but what all the other cities in Devon's chain of cities may need.
Okay, so kind of raising the lens a little bit.
Yeah.
How about from a pacing perspective? The base builders have a little bit of a different pace to them because, especially in the beginning, you're setting up the research. There's, like a system for a human who's like a warlock. Like that's a well-trod path, right? But for a civilization that you're trying to progress and stuff, the pacing is a little bit different. And it's not, like when you sit down for a base builder game, you kind of whip through those early levels pretty quick, but that's not necessarily true in a book world. Talk about how you've handled pacing, or what you
Yeah, that was one of the things I thought about. And in this one, because the solar flares technology stops working and it starts getting colder, but it's not an instant thing. So that gave, hopefully you saw this, that some overlap of the technology and the system is building up, but you had stuff going on because at the same time people were like, hey, we still have some technology, it's dying, there's more flares, how do we protect what we have, how do we start consolidating? So I tried to have that, like the more traditional prepper being ready for the end of the world stuff going on as there's the ramp up to the lit RPG part of it, which hopefully worked well to keep there to be good activity without making it like this huge info dump or boring right at the beginning.
Yeah, I think it did. And I think that you use that external like threat of ice age really effectively, and like, well, if this is getting boring, we're just gonna make it colder, right? Like, you know, yeah.
And there's also, for me as a reader, I like when things move forward quickly. You see in this, and I think you'd see in my first series if you check that out, like a lot of time passes over the course of a book. I like when a book covers multiple months worth of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that is one of the big stumbling blocks that a lot of early authors have is, you know, like somebody's book, I remember talking to them about it. They're like, yeah, you know, my 500-page book was like 3 days.
Which can be done really well sometimes, but
Yeah.
in general, I like to have a lot of stuff happens over the course of the book with more of a broad scope.
Yeah, over the course of time. Yep.
So it did allow me to condense. There's a little bit of, I didn't have to talk about every hour of every day for the first week, because that first book I think covers a little over 3 months total.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can have those spots where, like, I don't know, as readers, you guys don't all want to read about like 2 weeks of slowly building up the resources to build a new structure and do some research.
6 chapters of chopping wood.
I have a nice spreadsheet that'll automate all the resource collection for those 2 weeks, and I could just tell you, hey, collected this much and built this.
Yeah, 100%. So in this book, so you have this ice age element, but you also have these criminals that are attacking the settlement to add threat and like more oomph to their reality. And it's interesting because you talk about how, you know, it's irritating when base builders don't stay base builders, and I think that overall you're successful, you stayed a base builder, but you still have this element of these enforcers and these like criminal attacks, and you're like specializing, you know, kind of strike teams stuff. There's fighting and stuff in the book. It's not all just, you know, insulate these houses more. Can you talk a little bit about how, like, for the enforcers, what was your thinking with that? Was that from a writing perspective, was that just kind of balancing out the narrative so it stayed active and pushing? Or
it was, so it stayed active. It was also staying true to the roots of a lot of the city building or empire building games I love to play. There's usually some level of conflict. And again, I'm probably dancing too much around details to avoid spoilers, but even like the battles, a lot of them end up feeding into the base building aspect. When you look back at it, right? They were
there's some resource drops that happen.
Resource drops, new things you can only get through combat, that totally change it. But at least in my mind, I was keeping it all focused on the base building. Like, yes, there's this tension and this activity, but the end result of it is still we're doing these things to stay safe from the cold and save more people. So it's the same underlying goal there.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about being like, you do plot some things out, you do pants some things. How does that work? How do you plan this out, or how do you not plan this out?
So for a series, I will usually know, like, my first pass is, here's the 3 or 4 things that are going to happen in each book, and here is how the entire series is going to end. And then when
do you write the ending ahead of time?
I don't write the ending, but I know where it is. I usually have like a couple scenes in mind. So yeah, like this series, it ends where it would have ended no matter how many books it was. If that makes sense.
Yes.
And then when I start a book, then I'll break it down. My books are usually 30 to 40 chapters, and I'll know, like, here's the goal of these 5 or 6 chapters. And then I break it down a little more when I do those chunks. And then my writing process is normally I get up and I write a couple hundred words, and then I go for a 5-mile walk. And I have a very vivid imagination. So I watch the chapter in my head like a movie while I'm walking, and like listen to the people talking and the dialogue and go, oh, that doesn't make sense, and change things. So then I go back and I finish writing the chapter, which is usually around 4,500, 5,000 words, and can take 2 to 16 hours. And
so you're tortured like some of us.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I do. I get back and I know exactly what I want. And then there's also sometimes things go way, way off what I had expected. Um, I use the example because this has been asked before. In my first series, in book 2, there's a side character, Wendy. No. See, I told you earlier, I'm really bad with names. I'm like, is it Wendy? It's not Wendy. Emily. Why did I say Wendy? Who was supposed to show up for a couple chapters. And she was just so awesome that she stayed through the entire series. She wasn't there all the time, but she became like a reoccurring character. So yeah, that happens too. I don't feel that I'm locked into anything. If something changes and it makes more sense, then it changes. And as the series goes on, that's more likely to happen. I get to know the characters. I don't know if this sounds strange, but they become alive in my head. So sometimes they will do things because that's what they would do.
They grab the steering wheel and
yeah.
Yeah.
I tell people, but there have been a few times, particularly because my first series was 5 books long, that in the 5th book, I would write a 5,000 word chapter and be surprised at what happened, which was a really weird sensation.
Yeah. I get that because like your characters become so, you infuse them with personality and with relationships and with, hopes and dreams and stuff. And then you put them in a situation and what you had planned, it's like, well, actually, that they wouldn't reach for that sword or, whatever it is. Right. Yeah.
And then my assumption is that the readers would feel the same way. So I try not to ever force the characters to do something that goes against their nature.
Yeah. If you're
sounds like I have people in my head talking to me.
Well, but like it makes sense because we've all read books where the main character does something for the plot, and you're like, but would they really do that? Would they, and yeah. I mean, we've all seen that moment happen. So I'm glad that you let your characters win. If you've got any questions for Justin, please go ahead and pop it in the chat. And if you haven't read Rebuild the World Alaska, you should. It is fascinating. Even if you're not like a big fan of base builders, it's a fascinating like dive into base building and just kind of expanding that idea of what that could mean in an RPG. So it's been a lot of fun. Yeah. You talked a little bit about your writing routine. So a couple hundred words, a 5-mile walk, and then maybe a couple thousand more words after that. Do you do a 5-mile walk when you're on cruise ships too? So you spend like half of the time in Alaska and half the time like traveling and doing cruises.
It's a little more like 8 months a year on a cruise ship and 4 months a year in Alaska.
See, folks, this is the way to live in Alaska, right?
Yeah. Now, I'm normally only here during the summer. This last year, because my kidney cancer came back, I had to stay because I had to wait for them to cut me open and pull out my entire left kidney, so I couldn't get on a cruise ship.
Yeah,
let me tell you, a cruise ship would have been a lot more fun.
A lot more fun. Yeah.
But yeah, that's actually, I find it a lot easier to write on the ships, which is one of the reasons I cruise a lot.
Yeah.
My brain only has so much room, and when I don't have to think about going grocery shopping and cooking meals and cleaning my condo and all that stuff, I can focus on writing a lot more.
Yeah, no, that's legit. Yeah.
And thank you for the sympathies. Yeah, they said they got it all this time. This was my second round of it. 10 years ago, they cut it out and said they got it all and I was good, and then it came back last year. So I don't really believe them anymore, but they did say it was clean margins.
All right. Well, fingers crossed. We'll.
But yeah, I get up on the ship, do my 200-300 words, go up on deck. I don't eat breakfast, so I just go up and I walk.
And you just like walk, just do
loops.
a number of laps.
And then I go back to my room, and I am not allowed to leave my room or eat lunch until at least
you're not supposed to hold food against yourself
until I'm at least halfway through the chapter, and I am not allowed to do anything other than lunch until I have written at least 4,500 words for the day. Wow. So sometimes I get to leave my room at like a good day is 2 or 3 in the afternoon. A bad day is like 6 or 7 at night before I leave.
Dang. Okay. Yeah. I guess that's one way. If you're like, I'm chained myself to the desk to get the words out for a day. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, KL's got a question for you. She wants to know, what is the most challenging part of writing this series?
This particular series, I think, was keeping the pacing and keeping the focus on the city building while writing something that I thought people would find exciting. We've talked about this a few times, but it really was. it's really easy to go off and have the the main character have an adventure or get cool stuff for him and stuff like that. So I had to
Mhm,
rein myself in repeatedly from letting myself veer off into things that would take it away from the base building
mhm.
uh, focus.
Yeah, I could see that.
Hopefully, that's a good answer there.
Yeah. You're like, I have wanted to hold these other authors accountable to stick to base building. I've got to hold myself accountable.
Yes. There's a lot in my writing. I tell people that I have like my rules that I set as a reader. Like I don't like extreme cliffhangers. Starting with book 2, you always get a summary of what happened in the prior books because I read too many series and I don't like having to go back and figure out things, and a nice little 2-page summary helps. I told you this one. I like 1 or 2 syllable names for all the main characters that all start with different letters. Because as a reader, it's easy for me to get confused. So you don't
Hmm.
need Jason and Jim and Jenny all in the party.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. I actually once I wrote like a short story and put it to a critique group, and they're like, every character in the story starts with T. And it's like, yep.
So,
Yeah.
and I just saw Doug's question. I've tried dictation and it doesn't work well, but it would be really funny to have people listen in to some of the things I'm saying out loud. I tell people too, there was a scene in one of the books where Devin had to take care of some people who were not so friendly. And based on what was happening, like, and the way he didn't want to be the one to like outright end them. So I spent like 3 hours on the internet researching like how fast people would die at certain temperatures and how much noise they would make while they were dying, and then laughed to myself that that joke about serial killers and writers have the same search history is very true.
I just imagining you're on this cruise ship and there's some IT guy who's like monitoring server traffic. Like, what?
But I know I mess stuff up, but I like things to be as accurate as possible. So there was same way, just like what percentage output in the sun's solar output
Mhm.
would cause what sort of cooling on Earth, and how long it would take to cool in Alaska, in Southeast Alaska, with the heat sink of the deep water that stores heat. And I spent like 3 days just researching like the fluid heat retention and output decrease from the sun. I probably got it all wrong, but it was fun spending 3 days researching that to try to sound like I knew what I was talking about.
I think we need like a science club for lit RPG authors. Where we can be like, okay, you guys, I've got a fun quandary here. How big would a 6 times bigger mantis claw be in the Arctic on a Tuesday? Yeah, yeah, I think we need this. Doug says that your boss sounds like a real hard ass. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I tell people everyone's writing has to be different. If you want to write, you need to go in a way that works for you. And I just learned that for me, I have to get a book out beginning to end as fast as possible. So it takes me about a month to write a 150,000 word book. Then I'm
Wow.
going to spend 5 or 6 months editing it. But
Okay.
if I don't, I have to get it out and be done before I start the editing. If
So it's like the
I,
muse is with you. You've got to get it
yeah,
out. Is that true
I,
for series too? Like, are you doing like 3 books like out and then editing, or is it like a
no,
book
I
edit,
do
book
each book
edit?
at a time.
Okay.
And then I have a guy, Chris, who works at Wickedly Deviant Author Services. He's been my editor for all my books. Excuse me. And he takes 2 or 3 months usually to do his 5 editing passes.
Mm-hmm.
So I write a book, I do several months of self-editing, working with my beta readers. And then like Rebuild the World Michigan just went off to him this week. So I'm starting work on the first book in my next series now, because he'll have it for 2 or 3 weeks for each round of editing. So it's not like I'm going to slack off for 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to work on the next book. So I
Yeah.
do overlap them that way.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the wheel's always grinding. So you explained to us what your day looks like as a writing day. What does your editing day look like? What does that routine look like for you?
I do the exact same routine. I get up, usually I'll read over because I edit the first pass. Different passes are different, but a lot of them I edit a chapter at a time. And
Mhm.
that can end up then like cutting the chapter up and moving it around, but I focus on a chapter. Um, and I read it and then I go do the walk and I think about like, did this really make sense? Should I move this somewhere else? Should this go longer? Does this need to be expanded?
Was there
I
enough
do
frostbite in this chapter?
I do find my editing process usually increases the word count, right? I'll cut a lot out, but I add a lot in.
I
I
do
don't
too.
put enough detail in when I'm writing.
Yeah.
And then you probably do this too. Then I'll have the pass where the computer reads the entire thing back to me a couple times, which is my least favorite pass, but the most productive.
Yeah. Yeah. I will actually, on my final editing pass, I'll read it to myself, and then catch, like, did I stumble over that dialogue? If I did, then it's gotta have some work. Yeah.
Well, it looked like Stacy had a question for me.
Yeah. Stacy's got a question. She wants to know, do you find during the editing process that you're annoyed because you want to start the next book, writing the next one?
I would not say I'm annoyed, but I definitely get like I'm super excited for the next series I am starting on and writing. But that really only happens when I get to the end of the series. So I've written 2 series now. And during the series, I'm just really excited to get on to the next book in the series. But yeah, I kind of go in with the vibe thing. And so this next series, I wanted to do a little closer, not entirely, but closer to the OPMC and a little more solo, particularly at the beginning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited, and I was starting to think about that. So I'm plotting it all out now, but I had a pretty good idea, particularly of what the first book was going to be. It kept like jumping in and poking my brain while I was doing the editing on Rebuild the World, Michigan.
Do you ever just like go off and write a chapter for the next book, or do you just are like hard? Nope. You're like, nope. That boss of yours.
My brain does not
like, no.
and my brain just doesn't work that way. Like
Yeah.
I'm a little OCD, and like I have patterns.
I've seen the spreadsheets. You are,
and
yeah.
yes, it would bug me too much to go off and do that. No,
yeah.
Like I'm getting like upset just thinking about it.
You're like, no. I swear that half of being an author is just figuring out the weird, funky whatever you need to make your brain do it.
I failed as an author for a lot of years because I took advice about like editing as you go.
Mhm.
And what I was saying earlier, but like if I start editing before I finish the book, I get into what I call a death spiral of editing and I never progress. So for me, it was realizing, hey, no, that's why I'll probably never show up on Royal Road. I love Royal Road. I read like 25 different stories on there.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing to read on. And I could not do that because I would have to have the whole book done before I could post anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Which some people do. I mean, but yeah, it makes it a little bit harder, right? Yeah. Yeah. What are there any other like moments? You said it took you multiple years before you were able to really get that first series out. Were there any other failure points that you're like, man, I should have, it just took me a while to get through this block?
I mean, I think that was the biggest one. Part of it too was, I mean, I left the corporate world 4 years ago after that first round of kidney cancer. I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy a super cheap place in Alaska. I've saved money and I'm going to move up there and do this thing I've always wanted to do, because who knows if I'm going to make it to 65 and do my plan to retire to Alaska and write books.
Yeah.
And hopefully it doesn't sound morbid, but when the cancer came back last year, I was actually a lot more at peace with it because I had done a lot of the things I wanted to do.
Yeah.
The first time it stressed me out a lot more, but this time I was like, you know what, if this doesn't work out, I've lived in Alaska. I've seen all these sites. There's a series out there with my name on it.
Yeah.
So I was actually really glad that I had made that choice to let it kind of drive my decision to do the things I wanted to do.
Yeah. I would not recommend the cancer version of testing your life choices.
No. I was not advising that either, but it worked for me.
But yeah, no, it's good yeah.
And I say that because part of it, I think, was just working in the corporate world, didn't have the brain power left over to write. So I think
Mhm.
even if I'd known the right process, I would have been a lot less productive and successful if I was still writing emails and sitting in conference calls all day long every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am incredibly impressed with those people who can have a full-time job like
Can do
that and
both.
still write, or can, like, or even with families. Like, I'm single with no kids. I can't imagine, like, I guess it's DOCD, but like they would disrupt my pattern.
Yeah. You're like, I'm in the middle of my 5-mile walk. We can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Do you, has there been moments in the last 3-4 years since you quit your corporate job where you thought about going back, or, like what has kept you going as a writer?
I have had no desire to return to the corporate world at all.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think in part my timing was good. I was lucky, so I've got good readership and stuff. I
Mhm.
know it's become a lot harder for people trying to break in now with the deluge of AI stuff. I
Yeah.
think I was on that last cusp of lit RPG wasn't swamped with AI or just a ton of writers who were into it because it started to get more popular and more people know about it.
Mhm.
So no, I definitely, I'm not making a living off of it yet. Savings are helping out for sure, but I
Yeah.
think I'm getting closer.
Yeah.
And there's people who really love my stuff, and that's super gratifying to do that. I also love doing the signings here in Ketchikan. That is a huge boost just to talk to so many people. I also consider myself somewhat of an evangelist for lit RPG. I've explained it to literally hundreds of people at this point. And
So
no, it is not like a choose your own adventure.
okay, so let's talk about this, because I see your posts on TikTok all the time about how there's like this local game store in Ketchikan and you sign books there. Can you talk about like what you're doing and how you set that up?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really cool game store. I'd been in there a few times, and they had a section for local authors. Um, Elowen, the owner's daughter, she writes as well and has some of her books there. Um, and I just talked to them, and we started stocking my books there, and they actually sold fairly well. So I'm like, hey, what if I came down? And the first summer, I would come down 1 day a week. So Ketchikan's a town of like 8 or 9,000 people. But on our busy days, we will have 7 cruise ships here with like 25,000 passengers. So the really cool thing is I now can go down there 3 days a week and sign books for 2 or 3 hours. And there's new people all the time. Like, I obviously
Yeah.
couldn't do that if it was just the 9,000 people here. I would run out of people to
Okay.
sell
Yeah.
to. And
It's
then I go
actually
to different like festivals and stuff with them in the local area as well.
it's actually like great business models for, like you've always got new traffic coming through. You don't have to travel to the new traffic. The new traffic comes to you. It's yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
That's
I
oh,
want
go ahead.
this question answered too. KL's asking, because
Okay, yeah.
I went to the local science fiction and fantasy Kansas City readers group this like last night, and they brought me in as their first lit RPG author, and they asked me this question: how do you what is lit RPG? And I gave my explanation, but I want to hear what is you've done it to thousands of people at this point.
Yeah, and it can depend on the person, but one thing that I usually find helps people get what it is usually I'm talking about my first series, so we're going to pivot over to there, the At the End of the World series. But like, so this is a traditional fantasy. You've got goblins, you've got orcs, you've got dungeons, you've got the classes, the main characters, a druid, and you've got the healer and the fighter, and like, but it's got those D&D elements. It's got those role-playing elements. So those of us of a certain age, like probably out of our 20s, who loved playing D&D, who maybe loved playing EverQuest or WoW, and honestly, we're too old. Our friends like trying to organize things and work around kids and jobs and schedules. I'm like, lit RPG lets you have that same feeling and excitement of sitting down with your friends to play D&D, but you don't need to organize anything, and you can do it on your schedule. And that at its base is, I think, why it's so popular. And then depending on who I'm talking to, I also think that lit RPG, it gives you all the tools. So if you have a really active imagination, it's a lot easier to insert yourself into the world and do the like, here's what I would have done, or here's how I would do stuff differently, because it's not as nebulous as a lot of traditional fantasy.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, for the Rebuild the World series, I describe it as the same way. It gives you that feeling, hopefully, of playing Civilization or Frostpunk. It's the feeling it gives you. It makes you excited about, you want to see what's next. Anyone who's played Civilization where you've stayed up way too late, just one more turn. I want to have that same feeling in this book, that you want to see, what is he going to research next? What is that research going to do? And that it seems to resonate well with people when you explain it that way, particularly for, I'm 52. So men and women in their 50s like me who love D&D, the same feeling of playing D&D with your friends, but you don't have to set it up, is a really good selling point.
Yeah. No, that's 100%. Yeah, you don't have to figure out which Tuesday of the month people actually are free. Yeah. Kale says, interesting. I haven't heard it described that way. I always talk about the system, but whenever I mention the system, I feel like I lose people. And yeah, I am a little bit younger than you, and
yeah, rub it in.
And I never really played D&D much when I was like growing up, or even as a young adult. I don't know. It's like I was in fencing and I had trouble getting together with people. So for me, I always explain it more on the video game side. I'm like, it's like a video game. And I always say that, like, there's all these things that we love about video games to it, but especially in like the earlier video games, the story was kind of crappy. And this is like the best of both. You get this like good story, and then you get that dopamine drip of loot and level up, and it just scratches that itch. So
yeah, I'm super transparent. It'll depend who I'm talking to in their age. I will highlight the like WoW or EverQuest, depending on,
So I'm at this book group thing last night of science fiction and fantasy folks, right? And one of my first standalone-ish novels, it's set up to be a series, but I have not written a book to, because it was a science fiction gamelet, and I said science fiction gamelet is not that popular, and they asked me why. I wanted to see if I didn't prep you for this question, but if you're in the audience or not, like I had a trouble coming to a response to that question of like why science fiction lit RPG isn't quite as popular as some of the other subgenres that are out there. But if you've got an answer, I want to know.
I don't know why. I mean, I will say that was a conscious choice I made for this city builder. I really thought it worked better as science fiction. And from the business
aliens instead of goblins.
I knew I was going to take a hit on popularity and sales and income, but I really thought that it was the right thing to do for the story, which probably sounds way more high-minded than I actually am. But yeah, I mean, I went into it knowing that just the fact that it was science fiction was not going to be as popular.
Yeah,
it's one of those things I think will probably rotate over time. Like, we're just the zeitgeist right now is that fantasy is the in thing. Yeah. And there's, I'm thinking back to some of the stories I loved, like the Shannara series.
Yeah.
Like, not to spoil it, but they've been out for a while. Like, when you get toward the end of that series, you find out it's really post-apocalyptic, and there's the science part in there, or the names. Well, I can't remember the cool Dragon Riders of Pern. That ends up kind of like going back into the technology stuff in those books. So there's always been the technology underpinnings in a lot of these stories. And I don't know. I see that maybe the sci-fi or fantasy. Yeah. Putting having a sci-fi with fantasy classes is kind of a bad can be a bad combination, maybe. I did particularly call this, I went back and forth a lot, but the Rebuild the World series, I call it game lit as opposed to lit RPG, because the crunchiness is not on the people, it's on the system. And I didn't want people being upset that they were expecting more lit RPG like than they got.
That's an interesting distinction too. So you said that the difference between lit RPG and game lit is that the crunchiness is on the system for game lit.
Well, no, not so much that it's on the system. It's that here the lit RPG is like role-playing game. So you've got the focus to me is on the classes and the people skills and leveling up.
Mhm.
And to me, the gamelit, this is more like Frostpunk or Civilization. It's on the game underlying mechanics. I don't think I'm
Mhm.
explaining this well, but that was the distinction in my mind. I was like, if I read this series and it was called a lit RPG series as a reader, I would be a little like, why did they call it lit RPG? Then there
Yeah.
was part of me that was like, oh, you'd probably make more money if you called it lit RPG. But no, I stuck
I
with
think
gamelit.
I think you could call it lit RPG. I think, well, but I'm more of like a generalist when it comes to lit RPG. I think
And you
lit
could
RPG
totally, but I
is
think
the
it's on the
big
edge.
umbrella that we're all under, you know. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
All these deep thoughts that go into the decisions we make as authors that I spend way too much time thinking about them, probably.
Yeah, yeah, right. the the readers don't care. They're just like market to us. Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
don't even read the subtitles. So
Probably not. Well, and we've got Alan here, and he's saying that, you know, he didn't play the video games or the role playing games. He was more into the science fiction aspect of it. So I've heard people say that almost all lit RPG is science fiction because of the whole like multi-dimensional portal,
and
you know,
yep.
aspect of the genre. Yeah.
There's a lot of, it's kind of what you want it to be and what you make it. I laugh a little bit. There can be online the very long discussion threads. Yeah. Your comment there, start a fight by asking what lit RPG is.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, y'all are spending way too much time trying to define this.
Well, and it's funny, and this is where you know, like, I think one of the reasons I am a generalist when it comes to lit RPG and that definition is because I'm not talking to the crowd that is already convinced that they want to read lit RPG. I'm talking to the people that don't know what lit RPG is, right? And so for those folks, I don't, you know, like we can fight about dungeon core versus, you know, city builders versus, you know, post-apocalyptic, right? But like the people that haven't gotten into the genre yet don't care, right? They're just like, what are these system what is going on, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you about reading science fiction before video games existed.
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely reading it before.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I think it was like 86 when I got my Commodore 64 and started typing in games out of magazines.
I mean, hey, right? Yeah. I think, you know, I'm unique because there's a generation of folks that grew up like right on the, like me, like right on the cusp of video games and stuff. Like they were kind of a thing, but we like watched Star Trek before we played video games or whatever. And yeah, but we grew up with those like old school games too. So yeah. I don't know. I want to talk about Alaska because in the totality of our friendship, now that it's spanned about a month and a half here, I think you've pitched Alaska to me at least a half a dozen times.
Proselytizing how great it is.
Yeah. So I want you, Justin, we've got an audience. I want you to pitch Alaska. Why should we all move to Alaska?
Well, it's not Alaska in general. Ketchikan in particular is nice. We're only about an hour and 45-minute flight from Seattle. And Alaska Airlines runs 3 to 5 flights a day on a 737 direct to Seattle. So we're really well connected. Far enough south that the weather is pretty good. I mean, we get maybe a foot or two of snow a year. It's pretty rare that it gets below 20 degrees for a low. And I don't know if we ever get below 20 degrees during the day.
So
like
you kind of got that Pacific Northwest, like milder climate.
Because we're right on the water. We do get 14 to 18 feet of rain. So if rain is not your thing, this may not be the place for you.
It kind of killed Seattle for me. Yeah.
And, you know, it's not that expensive like other parts of Alaska because we're the first stop for the ferry and the planes coming in delivering supplies. We are on an island. And I love living in a cruise port. I love the fact that not only is it great for doing the signings, but also everyone gets back on their ship by like 5 o'clock at the latest. So you've got a pretty, particularly during the summer, it's a pretty vibrant downtown without all the tourists. Anyone who lives in, I've lived in tourist towns before where like people come and stay and fill all the hotels. It's kind of nice. Like if you don't want to deal with the tourists here in town, just wait till 5 o'clock and then go out. Which is a nice combination of getting the tourist money and the people you can see and talk to.
But I imagine you still, for like a 9,000 person town, you have a lot of restaurants and stuff to support. Yeah. Yeah, it's
And
gotta be
we
nice.
stay, there's plenty that stays open year round. And I love the winter here. I mean, we're far enough south, like even in the dead of winter, you still get 7 hours of sunlight in the darkest days, 7.5 hours of sunlight. So it's not like at North Pole or something in interior Alaska where it's dark for months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't like the heat. So I really like the fact that like this summer we had one day that was 82 and that was the only day in the 80s.
Hey, yeah. I mean, after a couple weeks of 110, I can see where that would be pretty appealing at this point. Yeah.
And when I'm here and not on the ship, I super close so I can do hikes. Like it's 15 minutes and I'm in the woods walking around a lake and thinking about the next book or the next chapter. So yeah. And taxes are good. I tell people if you want low taxes, you got to move to Alaska or Nevada because Alaska gets a lot of tax money from its resources and Nevada from the gamblers. Everywhere else, you get taxed some way or another. Income tax, property taxes, or something else.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
But in the same vein, for all of you who are listening in now or later, I'm usually here during most of the summer. Feel free to reach out to me on Facebook. I have met like 45 different people this summer, some readers, some friends who come through on a cruise, and it's only a 15-minute walk for me to go down to the pier and give you a tour and show you around. I even had some fans over in Australia who sent a friend who was doing a cruise who doesn't read my stuff here to pick up signed books so that they could be flown back because it was too expensive to ship. So I walked signed books down to the pier.
Dropped them off. They're like, "Good day, mate," and you're like, you're the ones that need the books.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love showing people around and doing like the free tours of the area or taking you to the cool restaurants outside the tourist zone.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we'll all have to take you up on that. That's sounds kind of idyllic, like a really nice place to live. Yeah.
Not that I'm trying to push people to my Facebook page, but if you go back to, I think I released Rebuild the World Alaska in July of last year. So if you scroll back on my author page, there was a few weeks there where I posted pictures of most of the locations from the book because I'd been to all the locations. So you can see like how pretty it is in the pictures I take.
Dun dun dun. Just just some Ketchum, Alaska propaganda to get everybody to, yeah. Well, okay, so let's talk about like what's next for you, and also Stacy's got this comment about the science fiction question that we've been talking about science fiction. Maybe it's because skills in lit RPG, non-science fiction, are more like earned and leveled up, and science fiction are generally more on the tech side, and that's there's a separation there between the individual and the tech. Yeah, I can see that playing into it.
And in a way, Stacey, that's really cool because I think that actually ties in really well to how I did it in this series.
Yeah.
I very specifically did not call them skills. They were perks. But like they get these tokens and decide what to spend the tokens on to install a better version of the perk using the nanotechnology. So I think you've described exactly how I did it in the book, Stacey. So I don't know if you read it ahead of time or not, but thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it funny though that okay, we have to talk about this before we get to the end of the show.
Okay.
All right. You're sitting here and you're like, I know, and we all hear this. It's marketing advice stuff, right? We hear science fiction lit RPG doesn't sell, and that does not stop us from writing it. You're like, like Stacy being like, it's the skills versus the perks is the problem, and the perks make it less sellable, and we're like, you know what, I'm gonna make it perks because that makes more sense. Why do we do this to ourselves, Justin?
Well, there's two things there. More than two things. Maybe I shouldn't say ahead of time how many things there are going to be as my train of thought spirals here.
Yeah, let's just
for one thing, you
pants this.
Stuff is not popular until it is. I think we're all, this sounds horrible, we're all a little conceited. I am going to write the sci-fi lit RPG that breaks through and becomes popular. But that's true. I mean, lit RPG itself, it wasn't popular until it was. So we would never have any growth or expansion in our culture and our literature if people didn't take the risk to write what they wanted.
Mhm.
And
And
this
I
one
think
was, oh, boy.
so. I think there's also something there about you could write you could follow market advice and write a good book that would do well. But I don't think that our breakout books are taking the marketing advice and playing it safe. I think, you might have a
Right.
lower chance of having a successful book, but you maybe are the only people that have a chance of having a breakout book, right?
Like, Dinneman is a great author. Has written great books, but I don't think he was following traditional marketing advice when he wrote the first book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I don't
Mhm.
think he's necessarily followed traditional marketing advice for any of them. And he's incredibly successful and super popular and has
Yeah.
built a lot of the strength of this genre. I mean, I've seen just doing 3 years of signings multiple days a week downtown. 3
Mhm.
years ago, I had to do a lot more explaining of what lit RPG was. And now it's, have
Have
you
you
read
heard of
Dungeon
our Lord
Crawler
and Savior
Carl?
Dungeon Crawler Carl? Yeah, yeah.
But it's made a huge difference. So there's part of that.
Yeah.
And then for me, like I mentioned some of them, like Shadow Sun and The Houndsman, there's even The Land, Dragon's Wrath. There's been so many books that I have loved the city building, and it just was not done. I really wanted books that focused on city building. And I thought to do it right, it had to be sci-fi to work with the way I wanted to stick with the city building for multiple books. So part of me is like, this is what I want to write, and hopefully someone will read it, but gosh darn it, I'm writing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah. Corey says I just gave a talk at a con on this topic yesterday. Well, Corey, we'll have to chit chat offline and talk about it.
You'll have to tell me if I gave a good answer from
Yeah, yeah. What's the Corey rating? Did we do a good job? Did we not? I don't know. But I would agree on the Dungeon Crawler Carl commentary. It is obvious that Matt is doing his own thing. Now he's got like F off money. He can do he can write whatever he wants at this point, and it's just got to be nice. But your next overpowered, necromancer number 6 is not going to do a Dungeon Crawler Carl thing.
Right.
Yeah, it just isn't. So yeah, he gives us a thumbs up.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And Stacy says, thanks for the sweet offer to come to Alaska. She's going to add you on her Google Flight watch list now.
Just do check ahead of time if I'm going to be here, because I do, like, I'm leaving next week and I'll be gone for the rest of the season. So
yeah. So summers in general, maybe.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Usually like mid-May through mid-August, I'm here, other than when I bring my parents up, or they come up once a year and we go around and explore.
Yeah, which this is about perfect for the rest of us who are just like dying in the summer from heat stroke. So yeah. All right. So you've talked a little bit about your next series. Can you pitch us a little bit about it? What is it looking like? It's less city building, more OP main character.
Yeah, no city building at all. It's, I almost hesitate to call it this, but it's set in the same general universe as my first series, but totally different. It's just going to have kind of the same starting spot.
So is it a like a post-apocalyptic, or is it like more of a straight fantasy, or?
Yes. No. I'm trying to decide how much to tell.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I will tell a little bit more. Just everyone listening, be aware that I haven't finalized everything.
We promise to pinky swear to not hold you accountable for whatever
this could change dramatically by the time I actually finish writing out my outline for it and realize that my ideas are not good and I have to tweak things. It's a trope that we've seen before, and I think there's a reason there are tropes, but it is going to be someone who at the same initialization point of my first series is trapped in a dungeon. So it's going to be a trapped in the dungeon. And I don't really want to say what happens from there, but it's going to not connect back up to the main series at all. It just has the same starting point. You actually, if you hadn't read the first series, wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
So no, it's not really going to be focused on the post-apocalyptic stuff, but there is going to be the leveling up and the different way to do things. I'm somewhat looking forward to it because it's going to have the same rule set as my first series, so there's a lot less rule development for me.
Yeah.
I also have to look through pretty carefully and make sure that I didn't write myself into any corners that worked fine for the first series, but are going to break something in this second series. And there's going to be, I have already planned out some cool Easter eggs that, like, if you've read the first series, you'll be like, oh, so that's why that thing happened in the first series, or that's related to this thing.
Yeah.
While still making it one that'll survive fine on its own. Part of it is I really want to do different things with my writing. You know, I did a more traditional 5-person party that sticks together, and that was really one of those things. I love books with a strong party, but there's a lot of ones where either the party falls away from the main character or gets totally overshadowed by the main character, or there's a betrayal and stuff. And I was like, there's been a lot of writers where I've loved their parties, but I don't know that I've ever read like a 5 or 6 book series where you've got a group of 5 people who stick together through all 5 books. Yeah. And that was like the underlying reason that I plotted that whole series out.
Yeah.
And then this one, I have a very specific like way that he's going to become somewhat OP, and then how he's going to form a group and how things are going to happen. And a lot of times I've read great things that I've loved, but it just hasn't quite gone the direction I wanted it to. So I've got a particular like vibe that I'm going for with the story, and I've got a new one here. I don't know if that makes it, again, talking about the business part of it, more challenging, because there's a lot of things that are different in each of my series. So I don't know if that hurts me in the fact that, like, if you loved The Fort at the End of the World, Rebuild the World Alaska is quite a bit different. Yeah. And this new one is going to be different too, but it's going to keep the same generally hopeful view of humanity and people working together no matter what the series is. I really like writing that way. And I write, this gets asked a lot too, my stuff is all targeted at adults, but is appropriate all the way down to pretty young ages. You know, there's no sex, there's no swearing, there's not a lot of violence. So I like the fact that they're targeted at adults, but I have people who've read them to like 5 and 6 year olds, and there are teenagers who read my stuff on their own.
Yeah. I love that. I love that the thread in your series is the hopefulness of
it doesn't seem to be a common thing in a lot of lit RPG.
No, it does not. It does not. I love it.
The hopefulness and the group feel of it. Of like people have to work together. Yeah.
Do you have any events scheduled for the rest of the year? Are there any cons or like, obviously you've got your sell-in at the bookstore in Ketchikan, you know.
Well, not even that. My last one was on Friday because I leave on Tuesday. I'm pretty much gone from Tuesday to May 15th.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you happen to be on Royal Caribbean ships, again, send me a message. I may be on the same ship you are. I'll be doing Liberty of the Seas, Serenade of the Seas, Enchantment of the Seas, Wonder of the Seas, and Icon of the Seas this season.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, so if you're on a cruise ship this winter as well, compare notes, see if you catch each other. Yeah. Are you planning on coming to any cons next year? Jordan Con, Lit RPG Con, anything like that?
Definitely Lit RPG Con. I plan to apply to be a panelist again. I would love to be a panelist there and be able to go. It's nice to be able to write it off.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at other cons. The timing, as long as I'm spending this much time on ships, kind of overlaps with a lot of the cons, and it's a little pricey during the summer to go from Alaska just for a con, unless I plan way ahead.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so minimally we'll see you at Lit RPG Con.
Yes. Yeah, and I will be doing the signings at the game store and the bookstore, and then when I travel, I do too. Like my parents and I went up to Wrangell, which a large chunk of Rebuild the World Alaska happens in Wrangell. So I sent an email to the game store up there and did a signing in that store.
Hey, yeah, makes sense. Love it.
Yeah.
Well,
and then I got to plug too the fact that Rebuild the World Michigan should be coming out in October.
I am super excited for Rebuild the World Michigan. I'm actually saving Rebuild the World Maine, and when Rebuild the World Michigan comes out, I'm gonna like binge the two of them
Okay.
back to back, and like then we may have to talk again. I'll have my Michigander opinions on.
I know Misty's looking forward to it too because she's lived in Michigan.
Yeah, we gotta compare notes because
Give
you
me a
also have
plug
lived
for
in
your
Michigan, right? Yeah,
interview that you're doing later this month with Misty.
yeah, yes, yeah.
Yes, I went to college in Michigan, so I
Mhm.
was there for about 4 years.
Okay, yeah, I've got so maybe we'll just have you hop on at the end of because Misty's in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I just sent her questions, but we might just have a special edition of Beyond Quest with you and Misty and talk about Michigan. The Michigan edition. All right. If you had a book that you were going to add to somebody's TBR that is not your own, what would you suggest that people read?
So I'm going to suggest 2 because I'm not going to follow the rules here.
That's fine.
So Paths of Power by Sean Barber. I don't know if you ever read that. He started on Royal Road. There's part of me that is like very proud of the fact that like his books, I read them on Royal Road before they became popular.
Yeah.
I read Battlefield Reclaimer by David North on Royal Road when he was posting it chapter by chapter.
Mm-hmm.
But no, Paths of Power, he's got a couple trilogies now. There's Paths of Power, Paths of Authority. They're all self-contained trilogies in the same universe. I just something about his story. It's a truck driver. When the apocalypse comes, his dog becomes like his pet. He's got to get back to his family. There's little elements of city building in the first series, a lot in the second. I just think he writes a really great series. It really connected with me the first time I read it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's nearly as popular as it should be.
Yeah.
And then Cinder's Forge by Ed Nemo. Ed, I met online. We've talked quite a bit. I consider him a friend online, but Cinder's Forge is about this like kid who ends up with a baby dragon, and Ed writes a really, really good, engaging, kid-like sidekick. He's done it in a couple of his books. And it's another one, it's probably the same way for you, where I read these books that like have not sold as well as mine. And I'm like, I don't understand why. It's so much better than what I wrote. I don't know why people aren't reading your books. And both of these fall into that category. I think they both highlight different parts of lit RPG that are just really fun. They're authors that do a really great job, and that I know personally, so I know they're real people.
It is that thing right now. The genre is a little saturated, and there's some really good stories that are kind of falling on the side that people just haven't found yet. And
it's a matter of time. I mean, I get it. There are so many things that I want to read. And I don't read as much on Kindle now as I used to. I think I mentioned to you, I read a lot on Royal Road because in the writing and editing phase, I can like, oh my God, I need a break. Tab over to Royal Road, and there's only one chapter, and there's only a chapter available because I keep up with the stories. So at most, I'm like 5 or 10 minutes before I get back to work. Whereas if I start a book, I'm going to read it till the end, and then we got problems.
Yeah. I get that.
So yeah. Paths of Power by Sean Barber and Cinder's Forge by Ed Nemo.
Yeah. All right, real quick before we get to your socials, I just want to say my next show is going to be on Tuesday with Mystic Neptune. We're going to talk about I Ran Away to Evil, which is fun. I actually read this book a year or so ago when it first came out, and I'm excited. I re-listened to it for the interview, and I'm excited to talk about it with Mystic. And then next week, like not this week, but the week after on the Reck and Pop Pop show, we're going to have Dakota Kraut, and we're going to talk about The World's Only Hero, his new very moist book that I binged last week. It's really good. I'm excited. It's got all the Dakota Kraut things. Like it's got the puns and the, but it's a post-apocalyptic. So it's new and fun. So
I'm impressed. You're really in the big leagues there with Dakota Kraut on your show. Look at that.
I know, right? I don't know how I'm going to handle Dakota because he is responsible for getting me into lit RPG, and I haven't actually talked to him on an interview before. So hopefully Pop will kick me if I start, fan.
There are so many authors at Lit RPG Cut. It's weird to be there as a panelist with all these other authors that I'm fanboying over.
Yeah. I'm going to try not to fanboy over Dakota, but it's going to be fun. I'm excited to talk about the new book and kind of meet him in real life as a interviewee.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it'll be fun. So, Where, Justin, I'm a big fan. It sounds like Facebook is a good place to follow you, but where can we get updates on you? Because you're big on TikTok too. I follow you on TikTok as well.
I don't know that I've just started posting stuff on there. I wouldn't say I'm big on there.
You're
So
doing good. You're doing good. It's like daily posts on TikTok.
Every couple of days, yeah. So I do try to post once a week on Facebook. Usually on the weekend, I do a weekly update. Kind of same thing. I like on Facebook. I don't want to get updates from people every day, and I'm not going to give them to you every day. So yeah, if you want a once a week wrap up of what's going on, that's pretty much it. You'll see a few more posts around a book release or the audiobook coming out, just because I've got to promote it somewhat. And then I'm also on TikTok, like you said. I post on Instagram sometimes. Those are the big ones. And then I have my website, justinmarksauthor.com, which links to all my socials and has like all my books and some blog posts. I really haven't done much in blog posts there. There is a short story set in my first world that's only available on the blog post. I do that a lot at the signings. I'm like, hey, if you want to read a little bit about Lit RPG, go to my website and read this free story.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. I try to be somewhat active, and I always love talking to people. So anyone who's listening, feel free to reach out with questions.
Yeah, super friendly. And I really enjoyed a lot of our conversations about the book as I was reading them. So there is pretty much, I mean, very few authors are like, no, let's not talk about my book, so.
Or just talk in general. There's a lot, particularly for a lot of Lit RPG readers, want to be writers. I think we all started that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always happy to give my take on how to make a go of being a writer, with the caveat that you've got to find your own path, talk to a lot of people, and take the parts that work.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And yay, technology worked.
Yes.
We're going to have to keep in touch. And thanks everybody for joining us. Your questions were great. And keep in touch. I'll see y'all on Tuesday with Mystic. All right. Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.